Hello, I'm Mayor Mike, and once again, we are talking point. Today on the show, we have Assistant Chief Jodi Baganz of Fire Department and Assistant EMS Chief Joe Gemza. Thank you guys for coming and welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So, what I wanted to talk about, of course, we're filming this the week of that big storm, so we've had a lot of events there. I'm glad things have calmed down, so we have a little bit of time to talk. But the most important thing I want to talk about is our ISO rating. Jodi, if you could talk a little bit about what an ISO rating is and our recent accomplishments that are going to benefit everybody in the city.
Okay. Well, ISO is a independent organization. They go around and they actually rate the capabilities of fire departments throughout the United States. They're ranked from 1 being the best to 10 pretty much being absolutely no fire department. And those are the communities that get those ratings. So if you've got a 1, you've got one of the best fire departments. They expect a lot of people to show up, a lot of apparatus, and you've done some things very well in your community to give some of the best protection. Those Class 1 departments are about 1% of the fire departments in the U.S. or municipalities. Just a little over 46,000.
46,000 departments in the United States.
Correct.
And the top 1% get a 1 rating.
Correct.
Okay.
And we went from a Class 3 city to a Class 2. So the number isn't as great as we would like to have been. We would have liked to have been a Class 1. But a Class 2 still puts us in the top 3% of the departments throughout the United States.
Top 3% out of those 46,000 departments.
Correct.
Great. So what does that mean? I know that, we're a higher ISO rating. There's some actual benefit to the property owners on their property insurance to having that higher rating in some cases.
Correct. The insurance industry is, and I'm in no means an expert in the insurance industry, but some insurance companies use the ISO rating directly for residential properties. Some of them use them for just direct saying ISO gives this department a 2, you're going to get the Class 2 rating. Others use it in more of a mixture, so saying this is our actual losses we've had in this community and they've got an ISO class rating of 2, this is where they go. And there's a few insurance companies that say, well, they're Class 1 to 5, this is the rating they get, and yet other companies don't even pay attention to ISO whatsoever.
Okay.
But those underwriters go and look at that differently. There's a greater majority for those commercial and industrial businesses that are within the Stevens Point, city of Stevens Point, the areas that we cover for fire protection. There's a greater majority of insurance companies that use the ISO protection rating with their underwriting of insurance.
Okay.
So it is probably best that everyone, August 1st is when ISO 2 goes into effect, everyone actually calls their insurance agent or their insurance company and says, hey, our community is going to a Class 2. Will my rates change or how can my rates change?
Okay.
Because that actually will affect them. Business and industrial, larger percentages of insurance companies use them. And then residential is about 40 to 70%, depending on where you are in the community.
Okay. Good. So I think that's important to note that you actually have to ask your insurance company. Talk to your insurance company. Call your agent, let them know that the ISO rating for the city of Stevens Point is going to a 2 beginning August 1st, and see if they take that into consideration for your homeowner's insurance. Businesses, as you mentioned, is even more important. So we could save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on people's premiums, the businesses.
Correct.
The homeowners, I imagine, would see potentially a smaller savings, but a savings nonetheless, and money's tight for everyone. So it's important that you ask for those.
Right, and really they need to ask for them. It probably won't be a year until those insurance companies go out to ISO and say, hey, what's that rating? And they put it into their matrix on how they figure premiums. So it's important for us to ask first.
Good. I know that Stevens Point is part of a metro fire district. Talk a little bit about what that involves and how a metro fire district benefits the people that are living in those communities.
Well, how it benefits the city of Stevens Point is that we've got, specific areas that we're a little bit further away from a fire station. Off of Stanley Street in Torrin Road area, that subdivision out there. And then on the extreme south side, we're a little bit further from a fire station. So those stations, when we discuss responses, those stations give us a little bit more access and personnel, and more personnel than station location for our ISO.
Okay.
Because we're including the individuals that are coming from Plover and from the town of Hull.
Mm-hmm. Which are the three communities involved in our metro fire district: Plover,
Correct.
town of Hull, and the city of Stevens Point.
Correct. So we will respond with two of our fire trucks, two of our ladder trucks respond. We get a fire engine from the town of Hull. We get a fire engine from the village of Plover fire departments. Those two communities are sending us at least 4 personnel from each community. When we're putting the NFPA, or the National Fire Protection Association, recommended standard of 15 people on a structure fire, we've been able to decrease our fire losses because we have more manpower to do it more quickly. So it is a benefit for us. It's not as beneficial as having more individual firefighters because they are, a paid on-call department, and ISO actually drops their response just a little bit because there's a delay in getting there.
And the paid on call are Plover and Hull,
Plover
not
and Hull.
the city of Stevens Point. We
Correct.
have full-time firefighters.
Correct. We have full-time firefighters that we use, and that really is a benefit for us, and that goes into our manpower. And how that has helped with us for our ISO is that our manpower has a very high rating in our training area. We have less than a half a point that we missed in training for ISO.
Okay.
Some of the other areas that we increased was our public education and our fire investigations. Our public education was fantastic. Really made a large jump because we concentrated on that with a couple individuals. Firefighter Shane Westfall, actually became the Fire Educator of the Year in 2016.
I remember that.
So he had gotten our award, or gotten the state award for that, and has really done a lot in our schools to get that education out there. Lieutenant Tracy Aldrich works with the school district almost exclusively, and has worked with them to get exit plans for all the schools and secondary exit plans, which is important for schools and as well as homes.
Right.
So he's worked with them to get that done, and we have a consistent manner across all the schools.
Okay.
We've added instructors, fire instructors within our department. We've sent individuals to become fire instructors, and that has allowed us to increase our training in specific areas. So we've been able to pick up points for ISO there.
Well, good. I want to get back to the training in a minute, but I want to talk too about the Metro Fire District. Now, just because you are not living in part of that Metro District, Hull, Plover, or Stevens Point, does not mean that we don't share our services. And I think that's fabulous that we do that in the Metro Fire District. But we want to talk about the MABUS system, the Mutual Aid Box Alarm. And when does that get invoked? And what does that mean, whether it's a structure fire in the city or outside the city or the Metro District? What happens?
The Mutual Aid Box Alarm System is a system that was developed in Illinois years ago, and we were one of the first 10 counties to actually join into the Wisconsin branch of it. And what it is it's a set of aid resources that are predetermined. So if we have a fire and we want to say we need additional resources, I don't have to sit and look in a book or have my memory to say, hey, I want X, Y, and Z departments to come, and I want them to bring an engine, a tender, and I want them to bring a rescue. I don't have to have that memory with me all the time on it. All I have to do is say, I need a box alarm of a box 2 on card 1. And the dispatch will go into that. They will say Stevens Point needs a box alarm on box 1. Those departments will have the same copies, and they will look on their copy and say, oh, that's Amherst Fire Department. They need to send us an engine or a tender or whatever else we have as predetermined resources. Similar, we had an incident in the town of Stockton, and Stockton called for additional resources for a very large barn fire, which threatened several structures. When they called their box alarm, not only did they get us, but they got Plover, they had Hull, and Amherst, just on one card, didn't have to know what resources needed to be brought because they were already predetermined.
Great, great. So back to the training portion. I know the fire department offers extensive training on a variety of levels, going out to schools, getting people involved when they're very young to know about fire safety. The smoke alarm system or a program that you have providing smoke alarms or smoke detectors for people who may not be able to afford them. Talk a little bit about that program and things that people can do in their own homes to be prepared.
Okay, well, we have partnered with the Red Cross and the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin to be able to provide smoke detectors for those who can't afford them. Those individuals who may not have them in their home, we want to make sure people are safe. We will come out, we will install them. We've got several boxes of them, and all they have to do is call the fire department and say, hey, I want to make an appointment to have smoke detectors installed. We'll come in, put them in, no other questions asked. We'll have just information on where it was installed so that we can report that back. It's important that everybody has a working smoke detector. A lot of people, as you probably know, I mean, I've done it before in my life, that, you know, the smoke detector is not a cooking timer.
Right.
But, you know, those things, when they do go off, our habit is to pull the battery out. So the new detectors actually have a lithium battery, which is a 10-year battery, and that's really the life expectancy of a smoke detector, so that after 10 years, we should be replacing them. The benefit with the new smoke detectors is that there is actually a silence button on it. So you can silence it, and it'll be silenced for a couple minutes.
Great advantage there. If someone can't afford a smoke detector, or maybe they want someone to inspect their smoke detectors because they don't know how to test it, where can they call? What resources do you provide?
They can call the fire department.
Okay, and that number is what?
344-1-833-1833.
Okay.
They can call, talk to either the lieutenant or the captain, someone who will be there. They will assign an engine company to come out and check your smoke detector, go through your home if you want them to for safety things.
Okay. And that service is free of charge to
Free
city
of charge.
residents.
We don't charge anybody for the services we do. We'd like to come out. Some of the things we've run into, and we've got individuals working with Boys and Girls Club, but we see a lot of kitchen fires and cooking fires. So if someone wants to have a little kitchen safety, we'd like to go through some kitchen safety with them as well.
All right. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate all you do. I want to touch briefly, too, on the local 484, the Firefighters Union, because not only are they out there fighting fires, providing medical service and things like that, but together and separate from their normal duties, they also have a charitable organization that they raise money for and help the community in even other ways. Are you able to talk about that a little bit?
You know, the charitable organization has been up for a couple of years. It is to serve the community. Recently, they had a black tie event to raise dollars for it. So, you know, some of the things that the charitable foundation has supported has been Project Graduation, the Humane Society.
Breast cancer research.
We've did the breast cancer research portions for it for years, as well as Honor Flight and even the Guns and Hoses events.
And I want to talk a little bit about that because that's coming up. Guns and Hoses, guns being the law enforcement, hoses being the firefighters, is a charitable softball game. What's the date on that again? Do you remember?
August 27th.
August 27th at Buchholz Park.
At Buchholz Park.
And that's to raise money for a number of things, including the Never Forgotten Honor Flight.
Correct.
Firefighters have had a bit of a good record there. Of the 3 years we've done it, how many times has the fire department won?
You know, 3 out of 3 is really, you know, striking a...
It's a trend.
Yeah.
It's a
It
trend.
really is
I think
a
there's a
trend,
pattern
yeah.
there. That's good. So if anybody wants to attend that, that is free and open to the public as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
So keep an eye on our Facebook page or our city website for more information on that. We also have a new event this year that I think you might have a disadvantage on because typically you're driving around in big fire engines and ambulances. While you're driving fast, that's a lot more metal under you. And we're having an event at Golden Sands Speedway coming up, right? Talk about that a little bit.
July 7th.
Okay.
The police department, apparently they were really getting sick of the fire department continually beating them in just about anything and everything. So they decided they wanted an event which they felt they had a greater advantage. So we're going to be racing some of the preset cars that Golden Sands Speedway has against the police.
Okay.
And
that's also a fundraiser.
That's also a fundraiser. There'll be some a boot out there for a donation. Again, going right back towards the Guns and Hoses big pot, so we can divvy it up to the charities as well.
Good.
I'd hope that people would want to come out.
And when is that again? July 7th?
July 7th to watch the firefighters beat the cops at the Golden Sands again.
Careful, they have that pit maneuver thing that they do.
I've seen them drive. I'm not scared.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. Joe, you've been patiently waiting.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
No problem.
Assistant Chief of EMS, Joe Gemza. Talk a little bit about what you do. What are you in charge of? EMS, Emergency Medical Services.
I'm emergency medical services is kind of my forte. Right now, Stevens Point Fire Department currently has 40 paramedics. So all of our firefighters, captains, officers, even the assistant chiefs are all nationally registered paramedics.
Okay.
Which gives us the ability to cross-staff our fire engines with our ambulances.
Okay.
So the city of Stevens Point currently has a contract with Portage County, and with that we are to provide 2 paramedic ambulance service for the county and all the citizens of the county. It's kind of a unique system because we don't actually do any of the billing, the city of Stevens Point. The county does the billing, and that gives them the ability to collect the revenue then, and then they have a contract with us. So
the contract, so just let me clarify a little bit for the people watching and or listening. So the countywide ambulance system is relatively unique in the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that we provide 2 paramedic systems, 2 paramedic ambulances to every single resident of Portage County is unique.
That is correct. When requested a paramedic ambulance, we will respond with 2 paramedics anywhere in the county. That's kind of how the agreement works.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that there's 13 different first responder groups, and a first responder group's a little bit different. First responders would be considered non-transport emergency services personnel. So each township or municipality that isn't the city of Stevens Point or Amherst has a first responder group. And those first responder groups get paged out about the same time at the Stevens Point Fire Department because let's just say you live in Junction City,
right.
And obviously Junction City is a little bit further away from the city of Stevens Point.
Right.
So Junction City has their first responder group, which happens to be Rudolph. They respond, and they show up and they start providing first care. Patient care right away. And then when the ambulance gets there, then the paramedics step in and provide that next level of care.
Now let's talk about that a little bit too, because we appreciate absolutely everyone who's involved in our medical services in Portage County. Everybody plays a role, and I know the advent of the AEDs in all the businesses, those are a big deal too. The training we did last year to show people how to do hands-only CPR. All of those things help, but there's a level of training that's involved as you progress in the medical services. Talk about an entry-level EMT or a first responder. What sort of training do you need to become a first responder?
The first responder is a course through the state where they take and then they become certified. And then they can provide the first responder group.
About how long does that take? How many hours of commitment are we looking
I believe
at?
a first responder is, I want to say it's 60 or 80 hours of classroom.
So in 2 weeks, someone could become a first responder.
Absolutely, depending on how the schools, the educational schools set it up for them.
Okay.
An EMT basics, 180 hours.
Okay, 180 hours of training.
And they learn to do the basic skills. EMR, basic. Those are all the great foundations that really build on each level for the EMS services.
Right.
The EMT basic learns, your basic anatomy, has some knowledge of some physiology, but it's just the basics. Blood pressures, we can give like aspirin. Now with the Narcan, with the heroin epidemic, they can administer nasal Narcan or an auto eject.
Okay.
They get there, and a lot of things can start by just doing the basics.
Stopping the bleeding.
If
there's an obstruction in the airway, they can clear that. And citizens can do that too with CPR training.
Yes, you are correct. And oxygen administration and just assessing the situation. Essentially, first responder groups get to the scene out in the county. Obviously, the further out you go, they're on anywhere between 8 to 2 minutes before the ambulance gets there to start rendering basic first aid or basic care.
Yeah, it is extremely important that we have those first responder groups because someone being there is really the key to starting that.
A lot of people think it's the actual ambulance that saves people, but it's actually the people and their knowledge and their ability to perform the skill is what saves people. I mean, we can put an ambulance in front of a house. It's obviously not going to do anything. It's the people inside the ambulance that get out and help, or the people who show up at your house to administer that first.
So an EMT
care.
basic, as you said, about 180 hours of training to be certified as an EMT basic.
That is correct.
Let's talk about what we do, the paramedic level service, the state certified paramedics. What sort of training is involved in there?
Okay, well, for the city of Stevens Point, all of our paramedics are actually nationally registered.
Nationally.
You can either be a state registered or nationally registered.
Okay.
And that was something when we started started our training in 1999, and then became paramedics in 2000, was something that the St. Michael's Hospital, who provides medical direction, and the city and the county decided it was important to provide the highest standard of care for the citizens of Portage County. That's kind of what the whole dream of becoming the system and having the paramedics is. So paramedics have to be, before you can go to school to be a paramedic, you have to be a basic.
Okay.
So you have to have that 180 hours and have had that training and have a basic understanding. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, a paramedic has to have over 1,000 more hours of training, and we can carry or administer over 50 medications.
Okay.
It gives you the ability to get into pharmacology,
okay.
Physiology, anatomy and physiology, critical thinking, and we ask paramedics to essentially mitigate the situation and be able to find out why you're having shortness of breath as opposed to just treating shortness of breath.
Okay. So there's a lot more things that paramedics can do that EMTs can't. You guys, I understand, have a medical director who you work under to do the medical training and advising and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. The state says that in order for you to practice medicine, you have to be working underneath a medical director.
So you're actually, at the paramedic level, you're practicing medicine. You can administer things that an EMT or a first responder cannot do.
That is correct.
Okay. So when a call goes out, the paramedics are deployed through dispatch?
Yes.
In ambulances. How many ambulances do we have that serve Portage County from the Stevens Point?
For the Stevens Point Fire Department, we currently have 5 ambulances.
Okay.
The way it's administered through the contract is that we have 2 ambulances staffed 24 hours a day with 2 paramedics. So we have one at Station 1 and an ambulance at Station 2 staffed directly with 2 paramedics for 24 hours. And then what happens is we have 3 backup ambulances, 2 at Station 1 and 1 at Station 2, and those are deployed based on as ambulances go out. So if I have 2 ambulances out, 1 in Junction City and 1 in Roswell, and another call comes in, let's just say for in the city on the north side.
Sure.
Then the Station 1 ambulance, those paramedics that are working as firefighters hop on the ambulance, Medic 3, and then they would be deployed out there.
How frequently do you have more than 2 ambulances deployed? Ballpark.
Ballpark probably about 26% of the time if you take them on a monthly rate.
Okay. Well, and I imagine too, when you are in the heat of the event, there's a lot of confusion that goes on. Let's say it's a car accident with someone who's trapped or some serious injuries or even a heart attack. I mean, these things there's panic involved there in the people who are standing by watching their loved ones in an injury situation. You have to be quick on your feet. You have to be thinking. And when you are working with another paramedic, a peer, that level of consultation that you can have, I imagine it's like physicians when they have consults with other doctors to determine, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Is this the right level of treatment? I imagine that's pretty important too, to have another paramedic with you. The 2 paramedics to have that conversation to make sure that the treatment is adequate.
It's very imperative. A couple of things that we advocate at Stevens Point in order to, everybody knows that there's medication errors that can occur. What we do is we advocate that if Jodi and I were working together, if I was going to give a medication, that I would say, I am going to give this much medication. This is the medication I'm going to give. And then I asked Jodi, hey, do you agree that this is the right medication? Because remember, things are happening very quickly on an emergency scene, right? When on a trauma, major trauma, we like to be off that scene in 20 minutes. So that means we have our paramedics stabilize the patient and start treating that patient in 20 minutes from the time I walk up and say, hi, I'm Joe, I'm a paramedic. So if you can imagine the speed and the ability to work as a team, emergency services is that true teamwork effort where we have first responders who can assist us, but we have our partners also for the more advanced skills. So everybody has to be able to rely on each other. When you look at advanced skills of starting an IV and drawing up medications, now you can do that. You can do that quickly. One paramedic could do that. But when you can work as a team, one paramedic can be drawing up the medication, the other paramedic starting the IV.
Sounds like a pretty big advantage.
It's a great advantage, and it does make you a little more comfortable with your partner, knowing that you're at the same level. And when you have a question, again, our protocol book's about that thick, and there's a lot of things that you can do, and they can call the doctor, but sometimes you just want that reassurance that, hey, we're both thinking the same thing, right? All right, then let's treat that together. And this is our game.
Yeah, and there are things that two paramedics can do that one paramedic and let's say an EMT cannot.
You are absolutely right. The state differentiates the skills that a one paramedic and a two paramedic system can and can't do.
Well, and I, for one, on behalf of the citizens, appreciate having the top-notch service that both of you gentlemen provide. If someone wants CPR training for a group, maybe they're a member of, I don't know, a fraternal organization, Rotary, Kiwanis, or even just a PTA, or what do they call it, parent-teacher organization now. Any group, you provide some of those CPR trainings.
We do a hands-only CPR, and we try to gauge that towards the group's ability. In other words, if they want an extensive one, at the university, sometimes we do a 4-hour training, basic first aids. We're really heavy on the hands-on stuff because we find that people learn a little more with hands-on. We'll customize that for that. And then if you're not actually in the city, we will either offer that to that first responder group to come teach that first aid or CPR and AED training, or we'll come out and do that for you. But first off, we usually try to have the first ask first responder groups in their communities. So, if you're from Dewey and somebody from Dewey would like that, it's nice to have your community group, and we'll reach out to them and do that.
Great. And I want to take the last minute or so that we have here on the show to kind of toot our own horn.
Oh, all right.
I know we have top-notch service from both fire and EMS, but what are some of the awards that our EMS service has won with the two paramedic system?
Well, one thing that I'm really, really proud of is the Mission Lifeline 2016 Gold Standard. Mission Lifeline is through the American Heart Association. Okay. And St. Clair's Hospital is also affiliated with that up in Weston. And it seems a little weird that you'd be with, St. Clair's and that, but this is specific to STEMIs or ST elevation myocardial infarctions or heart attacks. And so we received that in 2016 by working with St. Clair's. And that's something that happens when we can activate a cath lab and work well with both the whole system, St. Mike's and St. Clair's.
Well, I appreciate you, gentlemen. I know we could sit and talk for a long time. Maybe we'll have you on another show as a guest.
Great.
I appreciate Assistant Chief Joe Gemza and Assistant Chief Jodi Baganz joining us today. If you have any questions, contact my office or contact the fire department. And I am Mayor Mike, and until next time, we've been Talking Point.